It's winter, you're a beginner, and you want to go camping. What is the best gear for beginners winter camping? I've said it many times in the past that winter is one of the most amazing times of year to go camping. It is so much different than summer camping. And the way you camp in the winter is a little bit different because you're dealing with things like the cold. So if you're a beginner and you want to try winter camping, you might have some questions on what kind of gear to bring and what is the best gear that you can bring as a beginner without breaking the bank and spending a ton of money on the most expensive gear. So in this video, I'm going to go through some of the items that I bring with me and the items that I brought with me when I was first camping to give you an idea of what's the best stuff that you can bring with you. Obviously, you're going to need some kind of shelter, and that is most likely going to be a tent. There are so many different kinds of tents that you can use winter camping. I currently use a big canvas hot tent. That's a tent that's large enough to have a wood stove in so I can stay nice and toasty warm. But that is rather expensive, and as a beginner, it may not be what you're looking for. There's also four-season tents you can set up. They are often pricey. They are just a little bit constructed a little bit more ruggedly, can deal with more snow load. But there is nothing wrong with just using a regular tent. My buddy, who you've seen on this channel many times before, my buddy Tim, he has just a regular tent. It would be called a 3-season or maybe even a 2-season tent, and he camps in that just fine. My first time winter camping, I was in just a regular tent. As long as you have something that keeps the snow and the wind off of you, you're going to be fine. Just don't expect to be able to use it in the most harsh conditions. If you're expecting heavy snowfalls, you're going to have to make sure that the snow isn't gathering on it. If it's really windy, that might be a problem. But for most people, especially your first times, any tent will actually do. Once you're in your tent and it's night, you want to go to sleep, you want to be comfortable, you're going to need a sleeping bag. You can get the most expensive, lowest temperature rated sleeping bag there is, but they are very expensive. You could be over $1,000 on a really good sleeping bag. But do you need to spend that kind of money? I didn't when I first started. When I started, I only had a couple of summer sleeping bags. But combining those together adds insulation, so that's one thing you can do. Or bring a bunch of blankets. I actually brought 2 sleeping bags. I brought a couple of small blankets, and I brought a comforter from my bed at home, and combined all of that together so that I was warm in my tent. One thing I would suggest is test it out. You know, in your backyard, if it's a cold night, go out there and try it out, see how warm you actually are. You don't want to find out that you don't have enough insulation when you're actually camping. But you can certainly do it with layers of sleeping bags, blankets, and comforters. You're going to need something below your sleeping bag to keep you off the ground and keep you off of the cold. So you're going to need some sort of sleeping pad. In the summer, these sleeping pads are usually just for comfort and a bit of insulation to keep you off the ground. But in the winter, that becomes really important. One of the first things that I used, and most people end up using, is the closed cell foam pads. These are relatively inexpensive, and you can combine them. So my first time winter camping, I used, I think, 2 or 3 closed cell foam pads. One is not going to do it. They're really thin and it's not going to help. But on top of that, you can add blankets. I use wool blankets. Wool is a great insulator. So I bring a couple of wool blankets and lay them on top. It not only adds comfort, but adds warmth. All right, when you're not in your sleeping bag, you're going to need something to keep you warm. So that is hat, gloves, jacket, all of the things that you're wearing to keep you warm. And here, when it comes to like your core, your body, layers are what's going to be what you need. So right now I'm wearing a t-shirt. I have a fleece jacket over that, and then I have this small winter puffy jacket over top of that. So layer up. Even if you don't have the best, biggest winter parka, you're probably going to be fine if you have multiple layers. But don't expect to be warm if you're just putting a jacket over a t-shirt. That is not going to keep you warm. It's the layers that are going to help you. And then when you get warm, you can take those layers off. Hats, you got to keep your head warm. This is just a nice toque. Great, keeps me warm. If it's colder, I also have a hat that goes over with the big flaps and the fake fur around it. That is really awesome. Keeps me really toasty warm. You can also use a buff. Right now I have this buff around my neck, also called neck gaiters. Buff is the brand name, especially for those of you who watch Survivor, you might really like that. But putting a buff around your neck is good, but you can also use this up around your ears and over your head if it's not too cold, but you just want to keep your ears warm. For your hands, gloves. Right now I'm wearing just some thin fleece gloves. If it's not too cold, or if I'm moving around, doing a lot of activity, need my fingers to do stuff, these are fine. Then of course you can have proper thicker gloves that might have a waterproof shell if it's colder, or if you're doing other activities that you need that. But one of the best things is mittens. Mittens keep your fingers together and keep your hand warm. Mittens aren't just for little kids. Just get yourself a couple of good pairs of mittens and you'll be set. Now your feet, boots. Boots is somewhere where you may not want to skimp on cost. You want to look for something warm. I would not like winter camping in just my hiking boots. There's not enough insulation. My feet will definitely get cold, so you want to spend some money on winter boots. The kind I prefer, they're big, they're heavier, but I can just slip my foot in. I don't have to worry about tying anything. But you can also get good boots that are more of a hiking boot style that have insulation, but they're gonna be more expensive as well. Another thing that can keep you warm are hand warmers. Here we have a hand warmer. This is just your basic hand warmer, and these do a remarkable job. You can keep them in your gloves. I often keep them in my sleeping bag at night or in pockets in my jacket to keep my core warm if I'm chilly, but these are really, really good. These basic kind are made with basically iron filings in there. That iron mixed with a couple of chemicals and the air allows it to oxidize, and that oxidation process, which is rust, it's rusting the metal, that produces an exothermic reaction which gives you the heat. Some are better than others. The one I was holding there, it goes for 18 hours. You get others that go for 5, 6, 10 hours. Just choose whatever's going to work for you. If you've been camping before, you probably have a camp stove. Some camp stoves, and my favorite camp stoves, are the ones that use the isobutane mix. So those are great in the summer, but in the winter, and it gets really cold, that gas doesn't work in the same way. You will burn off a portion of it and it will burn very cool and it won't get hot. So they do make a winter mixture of that gas. So if you are going to camp in the winter and you want to use your camp stove, make sure that you get the winter version of the gas for those stoves. Two of the best things that you can use when you're winter camping are for your feet. That is snowshoes, which are vitally important if the snow is deep and you're going to go hiking off into the bush at all. You're going to need snowshoes. The other thing are crampons, metal spikes that go on the bottom of your boots so that if it's icy or slippery, you have grip. They come in all sorts of different sizes and they're not that expensive. So crampons I highly recommend, and snowshoes, again, you can get them relatively inexpensively. Obviously, the more money you pay, it's going to be better bindings, potentially slightly better construction of the snowshoe. But if you're just starting out and you want to try it, don't worry about spending a lot of money on it. One of the best things I bring with me when I'm winter camping is an insulated cooler bag, or a cooler. You can use a cooler as well. Now, when it's winter, I don't use this to keep things cold. I use it to keep things from freezing. So if you're bringing food with you that shouldn't freeze, you're gonna have to keep it from freezing. The first time I went to winter camping, I brought a bag of pre-made salad. I had some cheese. They froze solid and they were not edible after that. So a cooler bag, which you can keep stuff in to keep it from freezing, is useful. What I do overnight often is I put a little bottle of hot water in that cooler bag so that it keeps it warmer in there. And yeah, that is vital. You will learn very quickly that the food you don't want frozen freezes if it's not kept warm. So if you've thought about winter camping, try it. Believe me, you'll love it. It's the most amazing time of year to camp. Just make sure you have the things that you need so that you don't have a miserable time and that you do actually enjoy it.